With TSD Talks.
In 1987, a team of Egyptologists, using a cutting-edge short-range radar archaeological technique, discovered the existence of a heretofore unknown chamber located directly above the tomb of the great pharaoh Khufu. After days of precise excavations, 3 partially preserved papyri what's the plural of papyrus? Papyri were recovered. Given the technological limitations of the time, though, it was impossible for the team to glean the contents of the scrolls without destroying them in the process, and they were moved to the University of Cairo archives for safekeeping. Recent advances in digital imaging, though, allowed researchers in 2023 to create a projection of the writings contained within, and after a months-long process of painstaking translation from the original Old Egyptian, linguists on both sides of the Atlantic were able to compile an accurate rendition of the lost Khufu scrolls content in English. The following audio program is a recital by paid voice actors of the longest of the recovered performances, the so-called podcast incantation to unseal Balak Uru, the Mother of Locusts, which reads as follows. Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 4 of the Pillar of Garbage podcast. With me as always is my mummified co-host, TSD Talks. Hey TSD, how's things going in your little coffin over there?
It's been rough. The scarabs have been getting very, very rowdy. They've been just like...
Don't I know about their scarabs?
But you know what? It's okay because turns out I hear from some people on the outside. We just got mummified just before some like big plague started. So I think we just barely got out of there just in time.
What good timing. I don't know about you, but that just adds to the kind of satisfaction I'm having down here in the tunnels. I would not like to be above ground as, I hear a lot of locust noises at the moment. Maybe that's kind of related to it.
Yeah, I'd imagine that's one of them. There's also, I've been hearing a bunch of frogs, or toads. I don't know, whichever one it is.
But it's hard to tell the difference, yeah.
Yeah. But I know it's one of them.
Well, I mean, apart from kind of the details of mummy life, what have you been up to? You working on anything interesting at the moment to kind of broadcast to your followers in this the year of our Lord 2560 BC?
Yeah. Actually, kind of funnily related to that bit. I'm still working on my X-Men video for those of you who don't know, I'm working...
Oh my god, the Apocalypse tie-in.
Yeah.
It was right there.
I was gonna say.
Holy
because
that should have been what I was building toward, but it wasn't.
We missed enough. Okay, we'll just do it all over now. But yeah, I've actually in the midst of writing my section about X-Men Apocalypse, which it's been an experience, really.
What a weird vomit pile of a movie. It's not even all bad, but it's just... Yeah. It is a pile of vomit.
It's like, the thing I've realized about Apocalypse is that, like, when I was watching it, for the first, like, hour or so, hour and 10 minutes maybe, I was really enjoying myself, actually.
Yeah.
But then pretty much everything after the Quicksilver extraction scene is when it started falling apart a lot.
Yeah.
And the stuff in the latter half of the movie kind of makes the stuff in the first half worse, but in retrospect.
Yeah, don't even go there. Speaking as someone who's recently experienced a disaster in Egypt, hey, there's one thing worse than a swarm of locusts, toads, and frogs, and that is the ending of X-Men Apocalypse, brackets 2016. Thank heavens we're about 4,000 years away from having to sit through that.
Yeah, we've... Because of our divine rights as the pharaohs of our lands, we have been able to see into the future, so we know it's going to be bad even though it won't be made. And most people around here don't even know what a movie is, let alone what an X-Men is.
Twilight Zone type curse is that you have future vision, but you can only use it to watch X-Men movies that haven't been made yet.
Yeah. In 2027, they're working on the new Cyclops and Deadpool spinoff, which... sounds like it'd be a really bad idea, but actually turns out pretty good. Just a little bit of a tidbit for you. When is this? Do we know when people are going to be finding this? It's like around somewhere in the 2020s, right?
Yeah, the soothsayer indicated they'd kind of get a handle on the translation at the kind of start of 2024ish. So I think we're in the
That's a little bit early.
You are giving people a little bit of a spoiler there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little early, but yeah, the X-Men video has just become such a huge project outside of Apocalypse. I was telling you this, and I've told a couple people this already in my server, but my server being the name for our room full of followers.
Yeah, we refer to them because they are our servers,
Yeah, they serve us. My Star Wars video, my Star Wars Part 2 video, is an hour and 17 minutes, and the script for that is about 13,000 words, and that's up until now, that is the longest script I have ever made. And now the X-Men video, where I'm only on Apocalypse, so I've still got like 4 movies left. I think
you got a good few left. Yeah.
Yeah.
You doing New Mutants? You count on that one?
Yeah, I'm doing New Mutants. I'm doing all of them.
Oh, God help you.
I've already watched them all, so it's that part is out of the way. But I've currently am writing my Apocalypse section, and the script is at about 17,300 words right now.
Sweet raw. That is crazy. I think my longest one was probably, I think the Moon Knight one was maybe 12,000 words.
Yeah. This is going to be a long video. I am pretty sure it's going to pass the 2-hour mark, just based off of my estimations.
That's good.
Which is good for watch time and all. And I think it'll be a good video, but my God, I'm not going to be doing another video like this for a while.
Yeah. You can just look forward to the time you release it, though, because, we were talking about this ourselves not so long ago, but, there few things compare to the sense of relief you get when you've been working on a big video for ages. You put it out there and you can finally delete all that information from your brain.
Yeah. Once I'm done with this project, I'm never going to look at, X-Men The Last Stand, Origins Wolverine, Dark Phoenix, the parts of Apocalypse I don't like. There's just so much stuff I can just forget, and I don't ever have to, because I've done it. I've talked about it.
You can just do away with those neurons. You don't need them anymore.
Yeah, and everyone knows that once you talk about something in a video, that means you never have to talk about it ever again.
Exactly.
Anyway, what about you? You're working on
I'm kind of on that long video grind also. I'm kind of deep in the process of over the hedging myself.
Yeah.
So I think I'm midway. I was recording some of that a couple of hours ago. I think I'm a half to 2/3 of the way recorded. It's probably going to end up being around 40 minutes, and I don't know if it's going to be good or not. I thought it was really good when I just about finished writing it, but then when you record it and you're reading out some of the lines, you kind of maybe you get a sense of doubt at some points. Maybe I don't know. It's somewhere between really good and really underbaked.
Yeah,
but I think that's kind of my sweet spot.
Yes, that's your area where you really operate well. But I think that part of the reason this is why people rely on collaboration so much when they're working on projects, and they like working with people on other things, because if you're just making something by yourself and you have no one else to bounce off of it, you just become so familiar with the project and so familiar with the work that you just don't know if what you're saying is any good at all.
I'm so deep within that sort of YouTube cabin fever. I'm kind of I'm a few days away from kind of daubing my walls with lines from Over the Hedge.
Just God, now I'm thinking about it, I can't remember any of the actual lines.
What's a line from Over the Hedge?
My tail's tingling. That's one, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. Who could forget that little turtle guy? Vern. What a hero.
He is, he just tells people to have, he has a clairvoyant tale that is always right. And that's my favorite part.
Yeah, sort of like our soothsayers,
right?
We had entombed with us in this large chamber, from which the oxygen is rapidly depleting.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got the magic of the pharaohs to keep us alive, so I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah. The bigger issue is just making sure that we have enough oxygen to speak, so that sound waves get transcribed.
Exactly, because if there's no transcription, then we won't be able to complete the incantation, and the Mother of Locusts will not be able to return. Speaking of evil forces, TSD, did you catch my latest video by any chance?
Oh yeah, the across the Grifterverse one, right? That was I was able to catch the premiere for that. That was a fun one.
Yeah, you caught that one. I think I have a observation that's kind of relating to that. Like, I think one thing we haven't really used this podcast for recently, I think partially because you've not really been dropping video essays while we've been doing it yet, and that's going to change soon. But I think one cool thing we could use it for is kind of like a debrief for, like, talking about stuff we've dropped in a bit more detail.
Oh, and like an after show.
Yeah. So I've kind of want to bring a little bit of that vibe into the Pogservation this week, because here's my Pogservation. Shut the fuck up about guilt by association. You will need to shut the fuck up about guilt by association. So obviously this is not a new thing, as any of you who have heard the comment corner jingle, will be aware. It's a phrase that gets thrown around. TSD, if I say guilt by association, what are you kind of first thoughts there? What do you think I'm talking about?
Well, when I think of guilt by association, I just think of people being implicated in stuff they didn't necessarily do or endorse just because they were associated with an entity involved in that case. And often the most recent examples I can think of is pretty much every discourse about a new person who has done a bad thing online, and there's always like a group of people who are like, well, this person once spoke to them in certain things and they haven't gone on to since condemn them, therefore they must be just as bad.
Yeah, and guilt by association in that kind of basic kind of straightforward genuine, let us even say good faith application, it's a silly concept. Obviously, like, each person only kind of, we only kind of perceive a little bit of any person we're talking to at any point. So, maybe TSD, you're doing this podcast with me, and say 10 years down the line, it is revealed that I'm like a infamous cannibal, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be fair to condemn me for that, because you didn't know I was a cannibal type, that kind of thing.
As far as people know, I could be a cannibal too.
Well, hey, don't give the jig up. We still got 10 years left. TSD. Let's not.
No, 4,000.
But yeah, so. Oh, that's what I meant. Yeah, sorry, my abacus was a few of the beads were missing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, guilt by association. Hey, kind of a silly concept. But then also, what happens sometimes is people will twist that idea that guilt by association is, in that kind of straightforward, narrow sense, is obviously a silly thing, and they will use that to kind of dispel criticism, Right.
So it's like association isn't necessarily indication of guilt, but it is something to be like looking into,
Yeah, like, guilt by association is silly, but that doesn't mean we should do away with noticing association altogether. Like, hey, extreme example, say I am a cannibal, say it's revealed that I do all my eating of people, say behind a garden shed, and every time I go behind a garden shed, I take some of my boys with me, I think it would be kind of reasonable then, maybe it's not reasonable to assume they're all cannibals, but noting that me, them, and the garden shed are associated, that isn't necessarily a bad idea, right?
Yeah, it's good to, follow up on it. Guilt by association is more so a lead than it is a, condemning piece of evidence.
Yeah, I think what we're kind of arriving at here is that the guilt part is kind of the problem. The association part, there's, people are associated. And like, so when I do my videos, criticizing people who seem to express kind of right-wingy ideas and often kind of misrepresent or unfairly critique media, kind of lumping that in, this gone woke, blah-de, blah-de, blah. Whenever I kind of bring up the fact that a lot of these guys stream together, and it seems like a lot of their kind of tactics that they like to bring out come from these stream sessions, or like there's kind of cross-pollination of ideas. I always get a lot of guys being like, hey, why are you doing guilt by association? And the thing I keep coming back to, it, like, the reason I'm doing it is because who the fuck cares about guilt, right? Like, the point of a video like that isn't these guys are all bad and they're all bad because they're buddies and they're being bad together. It's that, like, hey, some of this stuff is bad, and we should probably bear in mind the picture of, like, the networks of badness it happens in, right?
Yeah, guilt by association is one thing, but it's like taking your example. It's one thing if we have this podcast together and then one of us turns out to be a cannibal. It's another thing if we have a podcast together where we discuss how to best be cannibals, and
yeah, exactly.
The subject matter is the guilt. If like in say like Friday Night Tights or whatever, they're not like just hanging out, and some of them happen to make more right-wing content than others. They're hanging out to talk about like their view of media and how everything is woke and whatever.
Yeah, thinking about these two kind of most recent videos of this that I've done, like, the point of those videos, I think that the thing that's got a few people's goats is the way I kind of illustrate the links. So these videos, if you haven't seen them, basically, the first one was a few months back. A few people were saying, "Hey, the X-Men have gone woke. Isn't that crazy?"
Which they never were before.
A lot of the Yeah, exactly. Like it's a totally new thing. And they were sharing around a few of these articles, right? From this website, that website. And I made a video basically looking at the three kind of most shared of these articles that were being like, oh, the progressives have taken X-Men from us. And pointing out the fact that if you look at who wrote these, where they were published, who owns the places they were published, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a lot of personal and professional connections between the people writing them, the people sharing them, and the people making the YouTube videos that cite them, and the people, there's a lot of, it's kind of a feedback loop, and there's fewer unique individual kind of parts to that than you might think. Yeah. And especially with this latest one, the second one, it came after that, and it was like, okay, so that video was taking a specific kind of outburst of the discussion and finding how far we could go in that kind of particular rabbit hole. In this one, let's take a kind of wider look and look at some of the people we talked about before and, the spaces they're in, and see that they are on the same wavelength, they kind of collaborate with, blah, 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 are published by in some cases. People who are like pretty directly tied to the institutions that created the modern alt-right. That's overstating it slightly because, like, it is more complicated than that. And hey, if you want to get into the weeds of it a bit more, there are some videos I could recommend you watch. But like, the point of those videos and the point of those graphs wasn't, and I want to be quite clear here, I think I was clear enough in the videos, but maybe I wasn't, that all of these people that have lines going between some of them are all the same, and they're all bad in the same way, and they're all in cahoots to the same degrees, right?
They're all
it's
clones.
Not that they're all
the
conscious. Yeah, they're not the clone army of secret fascists who are all paid by the same people and or are all paid at all. They're these guys aren't all part of fucking Milo Yiannopoulos' secret Nazi karaoke club. The point of those videos was that there are incentive structures for the people that do fit nearer that kind of description to share notes and tactics and audiences with the kind of, all the way down the spectrum to the kind of myopic, lazy nitpickers who benefit from the ideological work they're doing, right? And the point isn't the guilt. It's not to allege there's some sort of moral or like political guilt by association. It's not that like this guy, he's buddies with a really bad dude, so that makes him a really bad dude. It's the fact that this isn't all in isolation. We're talking about media figures, and we're talking about influencers whose appearance and helping each other in the content is the effect. Yeah. So like one thing I often a comment I have ended up like copying and replying to in lots of threads, because people get this twisted a lot, and I have to keep reiterating it, was Did you catch my video on Nerdrotic a few months back? Let's talk about Nerdrotic.
Yeah, the one where he and a bunch of his friends were being, well, to be quite frank, we were
racially dicey,
pretty racist about Blue Beetle. Yeah, but then my favorite part about that was that when people were defending them, they were like, oh, well, they're just pointing out like stereotypes. So if you're seeing the stereotypes, then you're
that
racist.
makes you the racist, actually. Yeah. I love the arsenal of kind of trap cards that commenters and kind of Twitter users have. It's like, they have like 3 moves, and one of them is no you.
Like, the thing about that too is that, like, well, what's the alternative? Like, they want a Mexican, character who's in a Mexican environment with a Mexican family to not act Mexican.
Yeah, and it's just like the alternative is token minorities who are, aesthetically kind of different, but are just kind of, waspy US main protagonists in every other sense. And if it's not that, it's work. Yeah.
My favorite part of that whole argument was when they said, like, when they confused salsa the sauce and salsa the dance.
Oh my god, amazing! Yeah, good shit there. But there was a part in that video, kicked off a fun running joke on the channel where, like, I'm kind of like, oh hey, in a few of these clips I've played, Mauler's been there, Yeah. Oh, I said his name. We don't say his name on this podcast, but yeah. So I put a section in the pinned comment, kind of clarifying why that's there, and I'm just going to read it out here because I've pasted it so many times. I want to kind of get it on the record, right? So here's the comment. Fans tend to protest claims that Mauler has any role in the alt-right / anti-woke pipeline by denouncing points like the one I mentioned here as guilt by association. And solely because I know that otherwise I'll get approximately 10 billion comments on the matter, I think it's worth laying out why I think that's a silly response. Guilt, nor any judgment on character or beliefs, is not what's being asserted. What's in question when people make this point is whether or not Mauler is playing a part in that radicalizing algorithmic funnel, which is, constituted in part by people who, yes, are the bad dudes who are doing it deliberately, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't matter if Mauler is guilty or not in that sense. It doesn't matter if you've spoken to him and he seems politically moderate. It doesn't matter if he is politically moderate. Guilt doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what his intentions are. It matters what he does, where he does it, and who he does it with. If you grant that such a pipeline exists, and if you grant that the Nerdrotics, Geeks and Gamers gang are part of it, then you must also grant that by repeatedly appearing on podcasts like Friday Night Tights, and by having Friday Night Tights regular on EFAP, to say nothing of the way EFAP appearances have helped build the profile of some of the anti-woke neophytes, Mauler as a personality, not as the sum of his main channel videos, is a de facto part of that pipeline. A minor part, perhaps, but a part nonetheless. As a well-established personality in his own right, appearances draw more viewers, thus better analytics, thus more recommendations, and so on. Now, if your objection to all that is that none of these characters are part of the pipeline, nor even or EFAP guests such as Sargon, then congratulations, you are not a hypocrite, but you are an idiot.
Yeah, it's like the thing about that is that, like, what you were saying about it doesn't really matter if he's guilty or not, because what matters is what happens, is that there's so much. And to be fair, when I'm saying this is about people on the left as well. People on the left do this too. But there's this assumption of, like, inherent morality is what you need to be proving. Like, you need to be proving that, like, you're like, it's kind of the thing of, like, a thought crime almost. Like, when people are trying to find out if someone is secretly racist or something, like, that's a real thing I've seen happen with, like, maybe this person's like, does it like, obviously people shouldn't be racist, but we've talked about this before, is that, like, people can have like racist thought patterns that they're trying to fix, and whatever.
And I don't want to say there's no value in anything like that, because, like, if you can, like, establish that a person has, like, consistently a kind of, like, subliminally racist way of thinking, that isn't nothing,
right?
But also, like, that's only, like, a small part of,
And it's like, but at the same time, what your intentions are doesn't really matter, because, like, if you're like, your intention is to be politically moderate, or your intention is to, like, try and just be genuine about not, if you want to genuinely like bring what you think is like really good insight to film criticism, but in effect what you're doing is pushing people towards this pipeline, then it doesn't really matter what your intention was because of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It really is just it's just a more complicated way of saying actions speak louder than words, I guess.
And I don't want to ruin the structure of this podcast, but I do want to talk about another comment, right? Mm-hmm. Because like, you know, if we, you know, this is the kind of debrief section of that video, if we want to call it that. There's a comment I had saying basically, I think you can do this with any group of people who share some political opinions, though. Blah, 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 blah. And then there's an example that recently many of the UK's nationalist right were creating similar graphs to mine to try and accuse the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, of being an Islamist. But sharing a platform with people does not mean you secretly share all of their most extreme views. And like, that's an example of the claim I think people are thinking I'm making with these videos, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not, but also the more interesting part there is like, so we take the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Like, I tried to have a look. I couldn't really find any of these kind of graphs this person was talking about. But like, sure, imagine a graph that like links the Mayor of London. Maybe he's been on some radio shows with some people who are like, you know, tied to maybe more sort of fundamentalist Islam sects, or, you know, maybe he's spoken at events with other people, blah, 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 you know, that kind of thing. There's a difference there between being in proximity and maybe sharing platforms with people who have, you know, potentially dodgy ideas. And that isn't the same thing as like being a content creator or an influencer, because then your sharing of the platform is the content, is the message, right?
Like I think to kind of your point, an example I was thinking of is like the Joe Rogan experience, right? You know, fellow podcast person. The Joe Rogan experience has a lot of guests on it, right? And one of those guests that I can think of is Adam Conover, who's a very like left-wing personality, you know, as far as like especially as far as like mainstream media goes. He's like very left-leaning, and he's very outspoken about leftist issues, a lot of leftist issues. But Joe Rogan isn't really. And
no, he's kind of a bit of a gremlin.
He's a little bit, but like, to be fair, I haven't seen the episode that Adam Conover and Joe Rogan conversed on. But what I imagine what it was is that it was just two people. He was brought him on to discuss his ideas and possibly be a bit of a debate. Whereas you see like clips of him interacting with like Elon Musk or Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson so much more often. And they also have such a more casual repertoire than like the little bits and pieces I've seen of the Adam Conover episode. So it's like the sharing of a platform isn't in of itself an indication of anything, but it is interesting to see like which platforms get shared the most and which, you know, like how people interact with each other when they share a platform. Because like if two people who are ostensibly ideologically opposed in pretty imperative ways interact with each other really, really casually and like don't really challenge each other in anything, that's you know, that's more of an indication that they might be closer than you would think. But again,
and like I think
not to go into the deal by association thing too much, but and like, you know, I think if Adam Conover was a regular repeated guest on the Joe Rogan thing, and maybe he was on at the same time as your Elon Musks, your Ben Shapiro's, and he wasn't pushing back against them, I think that becoming a red flag is fair enough. But I think with people like the people I talked about in my videos, whose method of spreading their opinions or rhetoric or whatever you want to call it is their videos and is their appearances on other people's videos. Like, there is a difference there. There is a difference between the act of appearing and bringing your audience over to someone else's content versus being a public figure and being in public with other public figures. Like, that is a different thing. Yeah. And like to think about, to bring up kind of your history with Mahler a little bit. I think about how that like episodes of EFAP are often used to just focus on people's, people that they kind of disagree with, and then try to. I don't want to get too into that because that's a whole other rabbit hole, and I don't want to invite more grief.
But no, there is this tacit understanding that an episode of EFAP that hosts a quote hosts a video that is negatively covers a video. There is a tacit understanding that is like a kind of a punitive act, right? It's not a nice thing to do, and I know this because in the year or so since I got EFAP'd, I've had bunches of comments from bunches of different accounts, like to the tune of like, oh, this video is going to get EFAP'd, ha ha ha. They didn't, but like without fail, it's always like, oh, you're going to be so sorry you made this video when you get EFAP'd. It's like, I can't wait for EFAP to grind this guy's face into the dirt. That kind of thing. It's always, they always understand, and they always probably tell you without realizing that to be EFAP'd is a bad thing. It is a punishment that is meted out. Let's put that to one side. That's
I don't want to. I don't want to delve too deep into that because we don't want that to happen.
Oh my god! Imagine if they EFAP this.
Yeah, can you?
They would be here for 7 days.
But yeah, it's back to your original guilt by association point. It's just like the whole that's not the point that you're making of that video. That it's these people are associated by or whatever because it's guilty or whatever. But it is interesting to think about how those kind of connections happen, and once you realize just how kind of incestuous a lot of these information spheres are, it makes you question the veracity of a lot of the information because so much stuff is being presented as facts when it's opinions on like news sites, like bounding into comics or whatever. And
that's the point. Once you realize, things change because the point of those videos wasn't like, hey, these spaces are quite incestuous, there's a lot of overlap, and that means they're all fascists. The point of those videos was, these spaces are quite incestuous and there's a lot of overlap. Let's all get on the same page there,
Yeah.
And interestingly, like another point that was brought up a few times in semi-critical comments was, oh yeah, but you could do this for the the left. And like a couple of comments brought up like the Young Turks and Hassan as examples of people broadly on the left kind of side of the aisle who have connections to establishment figures on their side. And yeah, sure, I guess, but I think I think it's quite interesting that people have given those examples because TSD, how would you categorize the content of Hassan or the Young Turks?
Well, so
like what is the image they're trying to put out?
I'm honestly not that familiar with the Young Turks, but my impression of Hassan is more someone who is like outspokenly leftist and speaks about
like
issues.
His image is he's a political leftist streamer.
Yeah, like, but I think if I understand correctly what you're getting at is that Hassan is intentionally trying to give off the impression that he is political and that he is leftist. That's
exactly.
That's the goal.
Young Turks is like a politics talk show, yeah, and like these on the other side we have your Nerdrotics, your Ryan Kinnells, your heel versus baby faces. Their whole thing is that they're not trying to be seen as political. They're trying to be just talking about nerd content, bro. And
I'm just concerned about comic accuracy.
Yeah, exactly. Just concerned about all the women being put into it.
Just worried about ethics in game journalism.
And like, if we get to the point where we're comparing the connections leftist political content creators have to leftist or like left of center political institutions to the right of center, quote, fandom creators and their connections to right-wing institutions, like, are you not just agreeing with me? Like at that point,
yeah, it's another example people could bring up is is in 2020 there was like the kind of infamous Among Us stream with AOC and a bunch of other like creators and stuff. And to be fair, there were some people on there whose their image wasn't being like outwardly political. Like Jacksepticeye, I believe, was on that stream, and like his image has never really been of like my identity is that I'm a politically active person, but like he doesn't hide like his political opinions either, At least not anymore. I don't know if he used to, but like he's pretty outspoken. Like recently, he's very outspoken about the stuff going on in Gaza.
Sure.
And he has been for a little bit.
But also, when was the next time he streamed with AOC? You know what I mean?
It's true. There was only really that one time.
Yeah. And one final thing to if you would let me vent about one final thing on this matter.
Of course, yeah.
You know, kind of jog our way over to the greener pastures is a bit in the comments, and YouTube likes to Reddit likes to recommend me silly subreddits sometimes. I think I tweeted about the fact that it kept recommending me Critical Drinker a few weeks ago, and that tweet got some traction, so some of the listeners probably remember that. But it also shows me Mauler from time to time, probably just because the algorithm's that good. You know, like the whole thing about like
he already occupies a lot.
I was talking about yeah. Like, you know, you get people who are like, oh, I was talking to my friends about going on a cruise, and then I got adverts for cruises, and it's like apparently the reason that is not because your phone was listening to you, but because like the algorithm knows you well enough to know that you were interested in going on cruises. Right?
Yeah, it's very very good at predicting your pattern, behavior patterns.
Yeah, so like. Maybe the Reddit algorithm is just good enough that it knows that I'm pillar of garbage and I got EFAP'd. I don't know. But like I saw in the Mauler subreddit that someone who'd like seen the latest of the videos and seen the two charts and hadn't watched the first video, despite the second video being saying, hey, you're not going to understand this if you don't watch the first video, watch the first video. He'd like seen that Mauler was on one of the charts and made a post saying, pillar of garbage says Mauler is alt-right, far-right. Obviously, despite me not saying that, and the point being that, the point not being that everyone on these graphs is the exact same as everyone else, blah, 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 blah.
My favorite...
And something that was being said there.
So you got Illuminati'd, kind of. Like in the H Bomber Guy plagiarism video where she just took a single screenshot from his video and then said he was saying something.
It was that kind of thing. Yeah, that kind of thing exactly. One of the things that was being said there, one of the things I got a little bit on my video, but not so much, was that I was doing like a Mott and Bailey argument. I don't know if they teach Americans about castles in school. Do you know what a Mott and Bailey is?
I've heard the term. I think I learned about it in one of my journalism courses where we were talking about fallacies, but I can't remember it as much. It's partially because it's not a term that people throw around as much in like online discourse, like straw man. I know straw man.
Yeah, we all know. We're familiar with a straw man. So basically, back in the olden days, you'd have your central kind of tower. That was the Mott, and then sometimes you'd have like your houses, your barn and stuff, and they'd be like lower down. The Mott, maybe the Mott's on a hill, right? It's like a keep, and then the rest of the stuff is down below, and it's surrounded by like a little wall. So like and that's the Bailey, right? And the idea is that. You've got your Mott, and that's the kind of load-bearing bit of the defense. And if you need to give up the Bailey, you can just retreat to the Mott. And in argumentative terms, that's like so like let's say you make an argument suggesting that like I don't know, homeless people are all criminals. But you don't actually say that. And then someone's like, why are you saying that homeless people are criminals? And you say, well, no, I didn't say that really, did I? And so the idea is that I guess plus all the stuff I've just said is like, I'm not saying that all of these people on the graphs and everyone connected tangentially to anyone I bring up in these videos is a secret fascist mastermind. I'm not saying that, but that's kind of what I'm implying. And then when I get kind of criticized, I can just kind of shimmy back and be like, well, actually, I'm really just saying that we should pay attention to the connections, blah, 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 blah. And like, putting aside for one second the fact that the bit at the end of the conclusion of the first video is me basically looking to camera and saying exactly that I think I say like I think I literally say I'm not saying that everyone here is like on the same page and it is paid and it's dark money, blah blah blah. I'm just saying that like if that's 100 and 0 is that everyone's just kind of chilling and doing it randomly, we're not at 0. The idea is that I'm putting this Bailey out. I'm making these implications that everyone's fucking fascist operatives or whatever. Everyone's far right, everyone's alt right. Consciously, they're doing all this, in sync, blah blah blah. And like, I just want to tell you all, if the Bailey exists nowhere but your imagination, if you're just projecting the Bailey on, guys, it's not a Mott and Bailey argument, okay? Can we get on the same page there?
It's kind of like it's the thing of like where, well, theoretically, I guess you could have been 100% more clear or whatever about like,
I guess, yeah.
But at a certain point, people are just going to see what they're going to see. And,
At a certain point, I'm going to make explicit what I'm saying at the end of one of the videos. And someone's just not going to watch that video and take an image from it and post it. And that's
right.
just going to be that,
You can explain yourself as many times as you want. You'll never be able to account for people who just don't watch the video all the way through.
Yeah. And that is really... I think you've landed a nice little critical hit at the end there. You've kind of smashed that nail right on its head.
Yeah. Well, before we go into comment corner, do we want to talk a little bit about like just stuff we've been watching? Just kind of have like a little bit of a break between like internet silliness.
Yeah. Maybe a little kind of detox session would be nice.
Well, last night I actually we were talking a little bit about like, kind of rom-com-y, quote-unquote chick flick movies from like the early 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
Bit. You mentioned Just Like Heaven.
I love Just Like Heaven.
And I wanted to watch Just Like Heaven last night, but I couldn't find it on any streaming services because streaming is awesome and everything is available. So instead, what my mom and I ended up watching was Legally Blonde, which I had never seen before.
Oh, yeah. I saw that a few years ago, yeah.
You know what? There is some stuff in it that hasn't aged like super awesome because it's a movie from 2004.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
overall, I loved that movie. That was so much fun.
Yeah, no, I'm on board. I think I don't remember it super well. It has been a couple of years, but like that is, I think films like that we didn't know we were gonna miss them until they all stopped being made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I watched 27 Dresses the other day. Actually, have you seen that?
I haven't seen 27 Dresses. There was one thing I wanted to say about the Legally Blonde thing before we moved on.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Is that something that I didn't expect to age really well? Is that it's like shockingly really feminist. Like it's, because like for those of you who haven't seen, the conceit of Legally Blonde is just that there's this girl named Elle Woods who decides to go to Harvard Law instead of like a stereotypical like girly college or whatever. Because her boyfriend dumped her and she wants to get back together with him and he's going to Harvard. But it's like kind of funny, but also really cool that the implication is pretty much just this like, she could have just been like a genius lawyer her whole life if she wanted to, but she just didn't want to. And the second she does, she was able to get into Harvard Law, like almost no problem.
I like that it kind of, if I'm remembering it right, it kind of validates the sort of more, one critique some people have against their idea of feminism is it's like, oh, well, why are you making all the women be teachers and lawyers? Why can't they just, enjoy being women? And I think, if I'm remembering it right, which I might not be, I think a cool thing about that film is like, it just says, yeah, but like, they can do either,
Yeah, it's because like, Elle Woods has like stereotypically like feminine features and like interests and whatever. And sometimes there are jokes with that, but it's never like mocking that, Yeah. Like the joke is usually like, oh, well, people are flustered by it or they don't expect it or whatever. Like there's a joke fairly early on where she's like picking out a proposal, a dress to wear for her boyfriend who she thinks is going to propose to her, which is a little bit silly. But it's whatever, because like she's doing it because she wants to, and that's good for her. And so then the sales associate sees her and is like, and she says something along the lines of like to her colleague, something along the lines of like, I love a dumb blonde with daddy's like credit card or whatever. And so she goes over and she like takes this clearance dress and she tries to sell it to her at full price. And like Elle's asks her if it has like this specific hemline function. And she's like, oh yeah, it totally does. And Elle's like, oh, you see that hemline, it doesn't exist. So you're just lying to me. Like she's really smart, which I really like. And obviously there's a kind of silly, it's kind of like playing on your expectations of like, well, generally women who act like that aren't portrayed as smart. And so it's a joke, but it's also like, maybe think about your assumptions.
I want to make a bold claim about two films I barely remember from this kind of era. That I'm going to make this claim just to see what the comments have to say about it.
Okay.
I think in this regard, Legally Blonde has aged a million times better than a kind of superficially similar-ish film from the same era, Miss Congeniality. I'm just throwing it out there. I want to see what people make of that take, because I can barely remember either of the films, but vibes-wise, I think I'm onto something there. Maybe that's a video essay.
I haven't seen Miss Congeniality, so correct me if I'm wrong when I'm about to say this, but it seems like to me Miss Congeniality is playing on the same premise, but instead she's like a FBI agent who's, going undercover as this silly persona, and she's playing it up as like a joke in trying to be.
It kind of does it in reverse. Like it's the kind of she's the all business woman who kind of discovers a feminine side to herself, right?
Yeah.
But again, I'm saying this from memory, and I'm sure people have read it the other way. But my vibe, I think, when I was watching that was that like the at points the film was kind of. The message it seemed most sympathetic to was that like, oh, she just needed to rediscover her feminine side all along, and it's like, no, she could have that too, but like, yeah, why can't you just be like Legally Blonde?
It's not mutually exclusive, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
And also the nice thing is that Elle is like, she's never like judgmental of anyone. She's like, really nice to be like. There are people who are really judgmental to her, and that's part of it. But she just never is like. There are a couple times where she calls out people for just being, awful to each other, but she never calls out someone for being like, atypically feminine. She never makes fun of anyone at Harvard for not being feminine the way she is. She also respects herself enough to know that like when someone is just focusing on her for her looks to, that's an insult, and it's not.
She's more than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. Maybe I'm gonna rewatch Legally Blonde after this podcast.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. The stuff that hasn't aged well is mostly just like people saying like slurs.
Yeah. It's a film from more than 10 years ago. You're gonna get some slurs.
Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. So I was
pleasantly surprised. On this topic of the rom-coms of the era. I mean, I guess we're getting to the end of the era, but like I say, I watched 27 Dresses recently. Good film, not unproblematic film, but like it's another piece of evidence for this idea that I feel like is going to turn into a video essay in like a year and a half. Is like, hey guys. All the rom-coms from the 2000s that are pretty good, they all have way lower Rotten Tomatoes scores than you'd think. And I think if put a gun to my head, make me make that video essay now, the conclusion I would probably, the only one I could make at the moment is like, this was before Rotten Tomatoes was gamified and like before it was kind of targeted by the studios to always be fresh in the way that it is now. And also like, maybe it was kind of, they're sending the film correspondent from the Tucson newspaper of the week. I don't know. I'm just making up a newspaper here.
Yeah.
And this guy's like, he's got the job by saying like, ooh, my favorite film, Citizen Kane. I love symbolism. And then they send him to watch Legally Blonde, and he's, maybe he thinks he's more discerning than the film. And like nowadays, maybe... But with the comparatively online kind of state of the criticism industry, at least as it pertains to Rotten Tomatoes, you have a lot more kind of specialization. Like, the guy they send to see the new Marvel film is going to be a guy that likes comic book movies. You know what I mean?
Like they're going to send to people who appreciate things.
Exactly, yeah. And those are my thoughts as they are currently percolating in my brain. But please do check back in a year and a half, because I will probably have kind of cool video taking that kind of line, unless you beat me to the punch.
Yeah, I've like been on and off working on playing with an idea for a Rotten Tomatoes video. I don't know if I'm gonna make it or not, because like I wrote a script and then like I sent it.
Was this the one I read?
Yeah, I think it was the one you read, and I liked it at first, but then I kept looking at it and I was like, I don't know actually, because a lot of it was pretty speculative, and that's someone else pointed out to me that there were some parts that were like really, really speculative, and I was like, that's a good point actually. But one point that I think remains consistent is that a lot of people don't understand how the Rotten Tomatoes score system works. Is that because like the tomato score, like when someone sees like an 80%, they assume that it's like a grade, right? You know, that's the assumption you'd have of, oh, this has an 80%. That means that if it was like a test and they were grading on how good of a movie it was, it would get 80% right.
Yeah. I mean, even the kind of the dialect of the website leads you to make that mistake. You know, it's this movie's 80% fresh. No, 80% of people think it's fresh. Like, those are two very different statements that are, the confusion there is not helped by the website itself.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it is that it's based on literally just a binary of do you like it or do you not. I already am not a huge fan of like number scores for movies in general. Like I still use them because I think they're a good like shorthand. But
you never use them instead of a discussion,
right?
You use them to kind of refer to a discussion.
Yeah, and like Rotten Tomatoes is like the absolute worst extreme example of that because it's literally just asking a bunch of people, did you binary, like this or did you not? And I feel like there's so many more movies where that question is more complex because like there are movies that I've absolutely loved that I think were terrible, and there's movies that I've hated that I know are like really good or think are really good.
And hey guys, it's June. I think we can move beyond the binaries.
This is true. Happy Pride, everyone.
Happy Pride. Like I said in the Discord server, happy Pride to everyone in my audience, all the queer people in the audience, and the three people that are straight,
including you, apparently.
Yeah, including me.
Do you have anything else you want to add to that, or should we?
I guess I don't. All
right. Well, do we want to jump into comment corner then?
Yeah, let's get ourselves penned in, surrounded on all sides by the frogs and the toads in the comment corner.
You're right, fucking shit, you are.
Well, technically that isn't true. They can
I see the British are analysing our American characters.
I'm sorry, but I'm offended by that content warning. I don't think you should include
but I'm offended by it like he is some political. I know they're not racist because I've been watching for years.
Asian, baby.
Channel name checks out.
It's comment corner.
All right. Well, since you started with a little bit of commenting discussion, I was thinking I could start with comment corner off for us this time.
Why don't you get us going? Why don't you? I'm gonna pitch you the ball. Give it a big old whack for us.
I'm excited to do that. So I've just been going through my old comments that I've like screenshotted over the years that I thought were really funny. The one that I told you about, the one I got my Knives Out comment video that was like the villainosity and watering the bloom of stupidity. I forgot about another comment that I got on this video that I thought was really, really funny. I mostly because like it's complaining about something that I guess could be valid, but also they're so dramatic about it. So I'll bid. It's a long one, so I won't delay too much. From Darkest Shadow, we have one thing to say to you, sir. Stop cutting straight to your face, all caps. It creeps me out, and if I didn't like this movie as much as I did, I wouldn't have watched the video all the way through. You can even cut to a pitch black screen, and we're better than cutting to your face in the middle or any point of your sentence. The camera wasn't even focused on your face, but even if it was, your face isn't interesting enough to be cutting straight to it up close and personal. People would get jump scared of Brad Pitt's face if a movie did the same thing. You are not ugly, but no one's face is that interesting to look at in the video essay about #one villainous scene. Please, for the love of whatever you worship or care, stop cutting to your face, especially up close and personal, ... Thank you. Besides that amazing video, 8 out of 10 without the zooms, and the zooms 4 out of 10 or even lower.
TSD, I love this comment. What a bizarre comment.
It's funny because like the video isn't even edited particularly like any worse or different than most videos.
It's very standard in terms of like, face cam videos that use footage.
It's just they're so upset about it. I don't know what.
But it's like, they're really fixated on it, but like it hasn't ruined their mood. They still like your video. I think.
That's what makes it funny to me, is that they still like the video and they still like, oh, it's still a good video, by the way. But this thing.
Yeah. I was, I think people who comment stuff like this, maybe they haven't made a video essay, and maybe they don't know, like, how limited you are in terms of what you can show.
Yeah.
Is if you're doing the facecam format, like, you're gonna show yourself talking, because, like, if you don't, like, there needs to be a visual variety, and there needs to be enough visual change to keep, the kind of TikTok era viewer invested, right? That's just how the platform makes us make videos. So, like, there needs to be change, and you need to keep cutting to your face if you're doing facecam, because, like, part of the kind of visual story of a facecam video, even if it's like a media criticism one, is, like, seeing how the face reacts to whatever point of the video we're at that point, right?
It's like showing your emotion through what you're talking as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's part of the kind of the visual thread that the viewers are kind of subconsciously following. And I guess maybe I don't know, maybe there were a couple of points where you edited it kind of jarringly. I don't know, but like
I could probably find something, because it's a video I made 3 years ago, so I could definitely go through it.
But to justify a comment like this, like, you're gonna have to be doing some real kind of jump cut Dutch angle type of bullshit. Yeah, I feel like you probably weren't.
Like, I feel like this is an appropriate comment to get on like a Brent Rivera or Mr. Beast video.
Yeah.
Like, the way that those guys edit their videos is like so hyperactive that I can totally understand someone being disoriented by it. But, like, I'm just sitting in my room and talking about, like, Chris Evans' sweater and Knives Out.
Yeah.
And, like, occasionally I cut back and forth, like, close-ups in my face. It's not it's not that.
I don't know. I'm kind of getting vibes like maybe this is the first video this guy's watched. Like, he's like, why does it keep going between the footage and this guy? What's going on? I'm so disoriented,
Yeah. And, like, the other thing is that, like, there's so many people who I've gotten comments before who are saying, like, why do you why do you have so many jump cuts in your video? And I'll tell you a secret. It's because I haven't memorized my script. I don't memorize my scripts in, like, 3 to 4 paragraph chunks that I just recite perfectly.
Yeah.
Usually it's like I say a sentence and then I look at my script, and then I say a sentence and then I look at my script, because like, it works, first of all, and I don't.
I mean, there's an interesting conversation here to be had about, like, everyone listening to this watches a lot of video essays, and they probably watch a lot of video essays, more like yours, less like mine, where the person's face is there, and they're looking at you when they're reading a script, but you don't know that they're reading a script because they're not, like, looking down at lines, and you can't see a teleprompter reflected in their glasses or anything like that. Like, there's an illusion, the illusion of, like, the kind of the recital to camera unprompted is, like, a pretty huge part of the kind of video essay aesthetic, and, like, everyone's going to accomplish that illusion in different ways, whether it is, kind of partial memorization, whether it is off-screen teleprompter that's kind of, doesn't interfere with the shot, blah, blah, blah. And, like, I feel like there's a lot of kind of curtain pull back, show the audience how it's done to be done here. Mm-hmm. But, like, in doing that, we're kind of like a few meters to the side of this guy who's kind of just running into a wall over and over again,
Yeah. And, like, whenever you see someone who seemingly is talking in, like, long unedited chunks, they're not memorizing it. Like, I can guarantee you there's like a teleprompter just off of frame that they're looking at, or behind the camera that they're looking at, because
or there's a bunch of little cuts you haven't noticed because they've put something else over their face in the meantime.
Yeah. And something like, even actually, I was thinking about this recently while I was watching the new Jenny Nicholson video, which is a great video, by the way, if you haven't seen it.
Fantastic video. I have seen it.
It's like a 4-hour video about the Disney Star Wars Hotel.
No, it's not the Star Wars Hotel. It's
right.
It's actually the Galaxy's Edge Star Wars immersive experience.
It's a galactic cruiser, from the Halcyon, in a 2-day immersive experience. But something I noticed, like, because she doesn't really do a lot of like crazy footage interference. Like, she does, like, she puts in footage and stuff, but a lot of it is just like her talking to the camera, and looking at her set design, and, like, I love
kind of long chunks as well.
I love her set design, but I did notice while I was watching it occasionally, and this is not a critique to her, because I'm not criticizing her for this, because I'm just saying it's
Jenny Nicholson, if for whatever reason you're hearing this, we are not in a position to criticize you. Keep on doing what you're doing. It's great.
I wish I could drop a 4-hour video every, like, 2 years, whatever, or however
That is
long.
the dream, man.
But she like, there are a couple points where she's like looking down, and like it looks like it's kind of good because she plays it off kind of as if she's like thinking about something, or if she's like getting her thoughts together. But you can like see her like,
but she's
reading
looking at
a
the script, you know.
Yeah. And like I'm only saying that because like partially because if once I mention it, if you watch the video, you'll never unsee it. So I've permanently cursed
These
you.
are the things that we see and you guys maybe don't so much.
Yeah, but like
I mean, probably some of you guys do, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's like that's the kind of thing you notice like once you've edited your own videos.
When you know how the
like,
sausage gets made.
like you notice like the little ticks that show that someone is reading their script, or that someone is has just forgotten their line and is like trying to cover it up and improvising it. But yeah, it's still an incredibly impressive video. Just for the sheer length of that and the research that she did and all the editing, like the amount of footage she must have had to edit down because it seemed like she was filming the entire like 48 hours of the experience, or however many of those hours she was awake, and to be able to condense that into less than 4 hours is impressive.
Just thinking about the file management, even before the condensation, just the file management of it all, like I am internally screaming right now.
Yeah. Well, do you have a comment that you want to share?
I got a comment. I'll tell you what, actually, can I have a comment and a half?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I just I've got a fun short comment. So this was on my video, The Messy Masculinity of Treasure Planet. Dongus Malongus says you should
amazing name.
Fun name, slightly less fun comment. Dongus says you should sink into the sea and stay there, right? And this is fun because I put it in the moderator channel of the Pillar of Garbage Discord. I recently got the first kind of proper hate kind of death threat email I've got in a while. So like this came at a similar time. So it's funny. It's like buses, you know, they come together. This obviously isn't that bad, but like the reason I brought this up is because Dongus. This is a video about Treasure Planet. It's not Treasure Island. There isn't a sea. If you're going to tell me that I should die, can you at least do it in a thematically appropriate way? Thank you. I don't think that is too much to ask. I should sink into space and stay there.
Yeah, you should asphyxiate in space, or
exactly. I don't think it's a big ask.
Yeah, you like if you're gonna theme your like the thing is there's so many death threats online.
They clearly tried.
There's so many. Like I appreciate the effort, but you got to stand out. You know, you got to
exactly.
You got to put a little effort to make it so that you're seen by the right people.
Yeah, like if you've looked at the video long enough to see that the spaceships kind of look like boats and they're kind of wearing navy outfits, but you've not paid enough attention to see that it is, you know, it's a space adventure themed around the sea and like around Treasure Island, then how am I to, you know, I'm probably going to assume that this is kind of like a vague, flippant, you know, kind of comment, and that you don't actually feel that strongly about my sinking into the sea. So if you want me to take your kind of nasty hate comment seriously, you got to put a little bit more work in. You know what I mean?
Like if I'm gonna put in the effort to read your comment, because reading comments
be kind
is
of
effort.
Affected by it, yeah.
Then
if I'm gonna reflect on that shit,
yeah, just bring it. Just like try to make it a more varied experience.
You want me to blow your mind? You can't reflect if the mirror is foggy. And hey, Dongus, your mirror is all fogged up.
That's so true. I forgot that you said 1.5, so I was forgetting what the other part of it was. What's the other part?
Okay, so the other part is, this is a different comment. This is a separate comment. But like that was the half because it was, you know, kind of a fun-sized nugget, I think. Mm-hmm. I got a comment from, I don't need a channel, thanks YouTube, and then the username cuts off, so I don't know what he's really called. It was on the video I made about the Apple iPad advert where everything gets smushed down.
Yeah.
And they say, this is a really good video, but for a video about a weird ad, it sure has a lot of ad breaks in it.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Not to bring it back to the first segment of this episode, because I don't want to go back there. I think we wrapped things up, but like I think a lot of people maybe view videos like that, like videos where I'm criticizing something, maybe even videos like, you know, like the Apple iPad ad or the kind of grifter videos in the same kind of vein. Like I'm, you know, it's like critiques, like it's Apple has erred. Apple has sinned. Nerdrotic has erred. Nerdrotic has sinned. Like these, like there are kind of rules of play online in the content sphere. Like it's like we're all playing these like morality games, and if you kind of catch someone making an error and you call them out, then you get like a +1 point.
Yippee.
And like, yeah, exactly. And like, I think that's the maybe the mindset a lot of these, a lot of the guilt by association Mott and Bailey comments come from, because they think it, oh, well, you're calling these people out, but if I can call you out, even if it's not accurate, then, I kind of equalize it all, we're back to square one.
If you catch them in the act, you catch every single misdeed is equivalent to each other. So if everyone's got one misdeed,
yeah, exactly.
Then yeah.
So like this person, I mean, I don't want to give them too much smoke, because maybe they did like the video, but like it feels like an attempt at kind of negating my critique if you say this video where you complain about Advert has Advert, and it's like, yeah, I okay, but like,
it's also just the same, like it. Well, of course, it's the so you critique society, yet you live in it. How very curious. Yeah. But also just the fact that like there's different orders of magnitude than having YouTube put ads on your video. Which, to be clear, it's difficult you cannot decide how many ads are on your video. Like you used to be able
spots.
You used to be able to like to control it very finely. But nowadays
they've changed it, yeah.
Yeah, you can put spots.
You can specify where the ads would be, but you can't. You have no control over how many of those are going to get picked.
Yeah, and also just the fact that like sometimes YouTube will run like 3 ads in a row on a single spot.
Yeah, and hey, we don't like that either.
Yeah.
I don't have YouTube Premium. I assume you don't, TSD. I don't use an ad blocker. It's if I'm doing the dishes, I'm listening to a YouTube video, and like a 3-minute long advert comes on. I have to dry my hands off, walk over to my computer and skip it. I don't want to be doing any of that nonsense, but, the video wouldn't exist, probably, I don't know, unless it's like a really small-time guy. The video wouldn't exist unless it was monetized, so I'm probably just going to eat that up. But even all this being said, we're making some valid points over here, but all this being said, the point of that video wasn't Apple's advertising to us, and that's bad.
No.
It was the particular kind of way we're being advertised to is kind of reflective of a kind of myopia in the Apple ad department and maybe their entire company, right? It's not Advert bad.
I have a lot of respect for people who work in advertising. I think that advertising is a little bit, as a concept is a little bit odd, just because you're like telling people what to buy and finding creative ways to tell people what to buy. But people who actually work in advertising, for a lot of them, that's the best way that they can find to express their creativity. And like when there's some really creative ads out there, like I have a lot of respect for that, because, you're advertising the new like car or your insurance company or whatever, but like you're getting to make like short films in a way that that you wouldn't be able to. And like I have a lot of respect for that. Because like there's
every ad is basically a kind of almost an experimental short film, and like sometimes
some more than
the ads
others.
that, like, if I say remember the best ad, everyone's going to remember an ad. Like maybe some guy's going to think of the I don't know, is it like the dairy milk advert where the people are doing the eyebrow dance? UK viewers represent, everyone's going to think of a different ad. Maybe in America you have some kind of funny advert with some like cavemen. I know there's a caveman advert, but like. I think this is something we don't. Yeah, this is something we don't think about enough. Is that like, yeah, they are adverts. They are trying to get you to buy something, but like within that, there's a whole scope for like a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, even though it is trying to get you to buy things, even though it is kind of compromised on one level by that kind of capitalist kind of thing, like the adverts can be cool as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like.
It's kind of an interesting thing to think about.
When I was younger, I really liked watching the so Zayfrank? Do you know the YouTuber Zayfrank?
I have no idea what this is.
Okay, well he does like things where educational videos where he talks about animals and it's true facts and whatever. He has like a very distinctive voice and whatever. He's got a really good voice for that, and he's got a pretty good sense of like dry humor.
Yeah.
But like 10 years ago, I want to say, he it probably was more than that, but he did some ads for Friskies, the cat food company. And they were a series of ads. They were called Dear Kitten, and it was basically just like a series of letters written from an older cat to a new kitten that had been brought in. And they would always
That's
be
a
like,
fun idea.
yeah, it's fun. It's a fun series of things. Like there's some that are themed. Like there's one that's themed around like one that is the Super Bowl commercial. That's called The Big Game, and it's about like how a cat perceives like people getting together for a big game. And like the ending is always like, Dear Kitten, you should always like the wet food better than the dry food because it's better because it's a Friskies ad. But
because it's by Friskies, yeah. We love Friskies.
But like it's still a fun skit in of itself, and like sure it was commissioned so that like a cat food company could sell their cat food to you.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not all that it is, and I respect it.
And also like
on that level,
I think this is more an American thing than it is like a UK thing. I don't think you see it the same way in UK shows, but like in a lot of American sitcoms at least, like, you know, you'll be watching an episode and then there'll be like a section where they're in the car on the way to somewhere and they'll be talking very conspicuously about, you know, how this new Audi has automatic park feature or something. And you're like, oh, okay, so this is product placement. And like, I don't love that, but like, there's a New Girl episode that has product placement, and it's also the Prince episode, you know? It's also the episode where Jess and Nick realize they love each other or whatever. Spoiler alert, I guess. And like, I just hit my pop filter, so that's probably gonna make a noise on the playback. Sorry, guys. But like, I'm not saying that's the same thing as an advert, but I'm not saying it's a completely different thing either. You know, it's on one end of a fairly wide spectrum. But hey, you know, maybe I did just blow your mind. What are you gonna do about it?
It's just that like advertising has seeped into so much stuff around in our society where you can't like critique something just on the basis that it is an ad, I guess. Like, I think...
Yeah, and like, I guess some people listening will say that's kind of defeatism, to be like, oh, you guys are just accepting the capitalist hegemony on our imaginations, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I'm a capitalist bootlegger.
You know?
That's what I am.
Yeah, it kind of sucks, but also, like, if you just sit there saying it sucks the whole time, you're going to be pretty bored. But if you say it sucks, and then you also kind of extract a bit of meaning from that sucking, hey, maybe you're having a bit of a better time.
Yeah, and also... to bring it back to the actual ad that video was talking about, it means that you can, because it's not just saying buy Apple, it's also expressing ideas that are trying to help you get like that are trying to get you to buy Apple, but also are trying to say things on their own. You can critique the ad on its own ideas rather than just critique it by saying this is an ad for Apple.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I actually had like one more I wanted to share.
Oh, okay. Bust it out.
So this was one that I brought up because I thought it was funny, and it was also on the video that you helped with, the Invincible video.
Oh yeah,
I still think it's one of the best videos I've made. I'm really proud of that one.
It is a good video,
and also did really well. So it's one of my most popular ones I've made. Until it like just suddenly stopped getting attention after it got demonetized, which was awesome. But I just made a video talking.
The reverse of my Smiling Friends video, which did awful until I got demonetized, and is now the most successful video I've made in the past 6 months. But I'm not bitter about it. Carry on.
No, you're not bitter about it.
It keeps going up.
But for those of you who haven't seen the video, the format of the video is I have my own essay that I'm writing, but also it's interspersed with like interview clips with other people who've watched the show, and one of them is Pillar. And so in this user their user is literally just like user and then a bunch of random numbers and letters, so I'm not going to pronounce
Oh,
that.
you're talking about user a bunch of numbers. Yeah, I know him well.
And he has a PewDiePie profile picture, interestingly enough. Just, you know, not going to be saying anything, but
it's not a red flag, but it's not a red flag.
They said, "Love your vids, but for the love of God, stop with the Discord calls. Every one of these video essay ass vids always has a Discord call where the dude asks his friends what they think, and I'm like, yo, can we move this along?"
Have you ever done that before in a previous video?
That's the thing. I don't.
Yeah, I didn't think you had.
Oh man. I've had Discord calls in videos before, and I guess in the more recent ones, I did call Athena, but that was over Instagram, FaceTime, so it wasn't Discord. But I don't really do that. Like, that's not really.
I think what's happening here is you're getting punished for the sins of your fellow video essayists.
Yeah, that might be it.
You know, I think maybe that was a slight uptick of that happening in videos around that point, and like this person's just kind of letting all that out on you, you know, because obviously you control what other video essayists say.
Right,
You are the puppet master. That's why they buried you here. That's
Yeah.
why they buried you with your scrolls, so you could puppet the whole world in about 4,000 years when this when this quote podcast episode is played back.
Yeah, that's definitely it. I also think that it's interesting that like what certain viewers perceive as like not getting along, not getting along. That's not what I meant, but like not getting on with the point, like so what people view as filler or whatever. And
Yeah.
I might be biased because I made that video and I put things in there for a reason, but I thought that those Discord calls in those videos will help add context.
They're not
to
filler. Of course, they're not filler.
Yeah, like I thought that they added context to what I was talking about. Like they added perspectives and different ways of looking at what I was talking about from different people who had seen the show.
Yeah, and it's kind of with those Discord I'm sorry, I forgot how to talk. With those Discord calls, you're kind of doing a spin on, you know, a fairly common video essay structure, which is like you've got maybe like a main kind of essay, and then like interspersed there will be sections talking about other things which seem unrelated, but actually like reflect on the main thing, right? Like people do that a lot. That's kind of what I'm doing with Over the Hedge.
I really
You'll
like it
when that comes
really
out.
like that.
Yeah, but like that's structurally that's what the Discord calls are doing in your video, right? Because you were doing the calls as you were making the video, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I was. I had an idea of what I wanted to say in the video, but I did those Discord calls a little bit to try and like kind of help my thought process, but also give some credence to like, hey, this is just my own perspective of this. Like, why don't I just give it other things?
Yeah, I'm like, I could see it being filler if you write the whole essay, record it, and then, you know, add the calls in afterwards, and they don't really reflect on what you're saying. But clearly, like, there is bouncing off of ideas there, you know?
Yeah. I'm actually, I actually kind of want to do that again, because I was thinking about making a video with Adam about Invincible Season 2. I was thinking I might bring back that format for it.
Little Discord call?
Yeah.
Well, you can't, because user bunch of numbers doesn't like it. So
that's true.
I'm really sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but that is donezo. We are finito with that, and you will have to find a different format.
Yeah, damn. You know, I like user bunch of numbers. Really, they really like.
Because he's kind of a tastemaker around these parts, you know, like
yeah.
He's like my girlfriend's been rewatching Bridgerton. Have you seen Bridgerton? Have you been in the same room that Bridgerton's been playing?
I have been in the same room. My mom really likes Bridgerton. I don't really know much about except that like
there's this character who's like a secret like gossip columnist, but like it's the 1700s or whatever, you know, Lady Featherbottom or something.
I watched the most I know about Bridgerton is that I watched the recent Dominic Noble video about it. So
okay, I don't know who Dominic Noble is.
He's the Lost in Adaptation guy.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, he did one about the first season of Bridgerton. So
there's this kind of figure who's they're kind of commenting on the kind of, you know, the mores and the kind of the vibe of the time. They're giving their thoughts kind of in a you know, kind of witty, kind of barbed way. And like, I feel like we should tell you, the listener, this because it isn't immediately apparent, but use a bunch of numbers is that figure for all of us video essayists. Like when they opine, you know, we change what we're doing because we don't want to be on the receiving end of user a bunch of numbers comments, because let me tell you, they sting.
Yeah, it's you fear the wrath of user bunch of numbers.
When you see that notification, you know, the panic attack starts, you know, you'll run into the toilet.
Yeah, like even people who have their notifications for comments turned off because they get enough comments that it would just
they still get through.
They still get.
Don't ask me how.
Yeah.
Whew.
Anyway, I think we could probably move on from that and head on to the Discord Q&A section, don't you think?
All right. Well, yeah, let's shimmy over there. What is your favorite superhero? How long is a piece of string? Where do we go when we die? Why won't my son talk to me anymore? Questions.
From Maple, what are your favorite comics that you've read, both Pog and TSD? Do you want to go first?
Oh, all right. well, I'm going to start talking about favorite comics I've read recently because I'm still thinking about the old-timers. Earlier this year, I read a bunch of X-Men stuff for my X-Men series, obviously, and I know we don't like the guy so much for what he did after X-Men, but Joss Whedon's run on, is it Astonishing X-Men? I think it's Astonishing X-Men. Don't crucify me if I got the kind of the subtitle of X-Men wrong. I think it's Astonishing X-Men in like the kind of 2000s. We go from it's like a Cure storyline, and then it kind of folds outwards into this alien planet kind of situation. I think it's like a 20-something issue run, and I've read a lot of the Claremont stuff. I reread some of the kind of Lee era X-Men stuff. I touched on a lot of other stuff, and the period I was reading comic books for, like when I had the pocket money to buy comic books and I didn't want to spend that money on like gig tickets or something. That kind of window of my adolescence, I think it was like roughly the kind of Utopia, kind of Jean Grey School era of X-Men stuff. So I have a wide, if shallow, familiarity with the X-Men comics, but I think the Astonishing run that Whedon did, that's really good. I really like that stuff.
Yeah. I think that Whedon, this is just coming from someone who is like a huge fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so, you know. I think Whedon is unfortunately a good writer,
Yeah.
He's got
it
some
would be nice if he was worse.
Yeah, it would be easier if he was just like a terrible writer. But he's definitely got some huge like blind spots that he rightfully does get made fun of for a lot, and have become a lot more prevalent in recent years. But like when he's good, he's like really good.
When he's good, he's really hitting. Yeah, like in that kind of run of stuff, like Scott's got some great moments. Kitty and Emma really have some stuff I enjoy. Wolverine and Beast as well, and like he even manages to make the bit players really interesting. Like Armor, is it? I don't know. That's probably wrong. I can't remember the name. There's so many minor characters in Marvel, and they lots of them have similar powers. And if you get the name wrong, everyone gets you. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys know you guys know who I'm talking about. That's a really good run. That's the best run I've read recently. Do you wanna jump in, give a little rec, and then I'll kind of think about a longer term answer.
Yeah. So. The thing is, I'm not a huge comic reader. I'm trying to get more into comics just because, like, I've read some really good runs. So, like, I read some Spider-Man runs, and I read the original Spider-Verse run when the first Spider-Verse came out. Gonna be honest, that run is not great. It's mostly just like excuses to get as many Spider people in one spot as much. The movies like blow that comic story out of the water. In pretty much every way.
I think that's fair to say.
But I did really so if we're talking about Dan Slott, because I think Dan Slott wrote those eras.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
I really like Superior Spider-Man.
Okay.
I read through all of Superior Spider-Man. I didn't read the all new Spider-Man run that came out afterwards and I know that wraps up some of the storylines that are in that one. And obviously, I'm viewing this in isolation, so I don't know like what long-lasting effects this had on Spider-Man. I've heard that there have been a lot of attempts to redo Superior Spider-Man since then, because it seems like it's the first interesting thing to happen to Spider-Man since like the Clone Saga. But I thought the idea of having a supervillain legitimately try to be a better hero and it not be like a scheme to just like fool people into thinking he's a good hero, but legitimately trying to be a better hero, but his ideology and his way of thinking makes it so that he just can't do that without starting a fascist police state, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because like I guess I don't know if everyone knows Superior Spider-Man. It's basically just it's the storyline where Peter Parker and Doc Ock switch bodies, and then Peter Parker in Dr. Octopus's body dies, and so Dr. Octopus is left as Spider-Man in Peter's body. And so, but the interesting thing is that like the initial storyline is just him like taking over the body so he can be like, haha, I'm going to get away with everything. But then he has like this moment when Peter Parker dies of like, oh shit, Spider-Man actually does a lot of good for people. And like, now that I have access to Peter Parker's memories, I understand why he wanted to be Spider-Man. And so now I want to be Spider-Man and like do better. But he's also Dr. Octopus. So he like tries to solve it through like making robots and trying to automate crime fighting, and under his watch, because of all of this, like he pretty much starts a police state in New York, just run by Spider-Man, and in it he actually the approaches of his failure, the failures of his approach are highlighted because he, under his nose, an entire like crime organization of like goblin related stuff gets under the city and like starts taking over things. And because it's Norman Osborn, he's worked with Doc Ock for decades, and so he knows all his weaknesses. And so once he figures out that Doc Ock has taken over Peter Parker's body, he knows exactly what buttons to push.
Yeah.
But that was like one of the best Spider-Man storylines I read, because I thought it was a really genuinely really interesting take on the character, even if it isn't really about Peter Parker, but an interesting way to play with that idea and play with a different kind of hero. I also, on the DC side, I really, really like Superman Smashes the Klan. I've been trying to read more Superman stuff, and out of the Superman stuff I've read, Superman Smashes the Klan has absolutely been my favorite so far.
Yeah, I haven't read that, but I've got a complicated relationship with Superior Spider-Man. Yeah. Which is that when I was, when I was in the period of my adolescence where I was buying comic books, like the way buying comic books worked for me and worked. I don't know if it's still the same. So I can't speak for the current kind of British rural adolescence. But the way it worked for me was the only place in like a 20-mile plus radius, because we don't really have comic book shops over here, even in the big cities, not so much. The only place I could get my hands on anything was like in W.H. Smith, which is, I guess, kind of like imagine like, I guess, like Barnes and Nobles for you guys, but like imagine it's like less focused on books and more on stationery and shit. It's like a chain. They have them pretty much anywhere, semi-developed. But like they would sell like Marvel like collector's edition or something, which is like, it'd be so many months behind the comics that were actually coming out, but it would like compile a few of them into one issue. So you'd be paying like, I think it was like $3.50 back then, which is, I guess, roughly the price of a cup of coffee. You'd be paying that much for like a couple of issues rather than just one issue. And I think I was collecting the Spider-Man one, the Avengers one, though there was one that was Wolverine and Deadpool, and there was an X-Men one. I think I was collecting those ones. And like, that was all of my money and then some. So I was kind of getting to the point where I had to downscale it. And I think the thing that caused me to stop buying the Spider-Man ones was because it was coming up to Superior Spider-Man, and like, every time like Marvel or DC kills off a character, they're like, "Oh no, but it's for real, guys. We promise.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna stick around." Like they were doing that for Spider-Man, and I was too young to realize that it would just obviously not be that. So like there I am, like 12 or 13, like shell-shocked hearing that Marvel's killing off Peter Parker. And I'm like, Spider-Man? That is it. They're killing Spider-Man. I'm not buying their books anymore. I need to vote with my wallet. So I never read Superior Spider-Man because I was aghast by the idea of it.
Yeah. And like obviously in the end, Peter Parker comes back and like what have
but
you.
Through some real fucking bullshit, right? It's like there was some sort of psychic impression on Doc Ock's mind or something.
So what happens is
they always come up with stupid ideas.
Like it's kind of stupid, but like I think if I remember correctly, it's something like when he did the memory wipe of Peter Parker, there was still a little bit left, and that little bit was able to like grow back or what have you. And there was actually a moment in the storyline where that happened the first time, and there's like immediately there's like a bit of Peter Parker's consciousness left who's able to like or comment on Doc Ock
he's been
stuff.
like a little ghost.
But then Doc Ock figures out where he is, and then he fucking kills that guy. He like destroys him, and like there's for like 20 issues or something, there's just not a peep from Peter Parker, and so you're like, obviously in the back of your mind that like they're going to bring him back, but
at some point Peter Parker will return.
Yeah, but there's like
somehow Peter Parker has returned.
But like there's this thing of like, well, shit, he did that. He killed that person, and like it seemed permanent. Yeah. Like it seemed it was like the most permanent that you can be in like killing off a major character like Spider-Man. It's a miracle that he stayed dead for that long. But yeah, I think that regardless of how the fact that everyone knew it was going to be resolved eventually, the fact that they were able to keep it going for as long as they did, and they had enough
and turn it into something interesting.
Yeah, I really liked that, and it went for like 30 issues, I want to say. So
yeah, it lasted for a while.
Yeah, so that would have been a while. That would have been like I think a year or two. So for like a solid like year and a half, Doc Ock was just Spider-Man. Like that was it.
Yeah, it was just Spider-Man around. And that is when I slowly stopped buying comics. And the next time I had any disposable income, it went on. I think it was CS:GO keys, and then it was gig tickets and guitar stuff. So yeah, thank you, Dan Slott, for giving me the means to pursue music. Cheers for that, buddy.
Yeah,
I guess.
And then he like saw your video, so we're praising Superior Spider-Man.
Full circle.
And he saw your X-Men video, so it's like basically it's the same thing.
Oh, and I forgot to come up with another comic answer, but like my gut reaction for like longer term is, I think when I was younger, I got like a compilation anthology thing of Jason Aaron's Thor from like 2011, 2012-ish, like the Gore the God Butcher stuff and the Jane stuff. I think I borrowed that from like a local library, and I remember reading that and thinking like, all right, this is pretty fucking good.
And then
I don't want to get the impression I've not
perfectly
read...
adapted in 2022 as Love and Thunder.
I don't hate that movie. I mean, I've not rewatched it in a very long time, but in my head, I don't hate it. You know,
it's like
definitely.
But it doesn't seem like it really did justice to that run of Thor. From what I've seen of the run of Thor, it's like totally an Arthurian epic almost.
It's better. I think that movie's better as a movie than it is as an adaptation for sure. But yeah, guys, I've read a lot of stuff. I've read every Avengers issue from 1 through Disassembled, and a lot of the stuff afterwards. I've read a lot of the early Spider-Man stuff, blah blah blah. I'm not just giving you the cheap answers. I'm just kind of giving you how the things that spring to mind.
And as for like not traditional like Marvel or DC comics as well, because I guess this didn't specify that it had to be comic books.
Oh yeah.
If we're talking about newspaper comic strips, I fucking love Calvin and Hobbes. I love Calvin and Hobbes so much. Calvin Hobbes.
I think that's another one of those things that didn't really make it over the Atlantic. So like the only thing I know about Calvin and Hobbes is that there's the guy peeing. Is that Calvin and Hobbes?
Yeah. So that's a bootleg actually. One of the things about Calvin and Hobbes is that like the guy who made it, Bill Watterson, is really really into like artistic integrity. Like it's to the point where like it would be a little bit pretentious for a guy making newspaper strips if the newspaper strips weren't so fucking good. And it's like, yeah, you know what? You kind of earned that.
Yeah.
But he infamously refused to merchandise Calvin and Hobbes in any way, shape, or form. Like he didn't allow the company to make like plushes or make like lunchboxes with Calvin's face on them or like make a TV show or a movie or anything. So the only like Calvin and Hobbes merchandise, quote unquote, that you can really get is the comics themselves and like prints of the comics that you can like hang on your wall and stuff. So the Calvin peeing thing is a bootleg that someone made once, and they started selling stickers of that. But Calvin and Hobbes like blows like most other newspaper strips I've read out of the water, like because
no way you're doing Garfield like that. That is crazy.
Garfield has his place, but Calvin Hobbes.
Haven't you seen the one where he has the pipe?
Yeah, the pipe. That is such a good one. But
that is a good one.
But Calvin Hobbes is like, it's funny, but also, and it's creative, and it really informed my view of the world as a young kid. But also, it's surprisingly philosophical for a newspaper comic strip about a kid and his tiger. And like, there's one of a really common formats of a Calvin and Hobbes strip is just Calvin and Hobbes like walking through a really picturesque forest, because he liked to flex his actual art skills as well on top of being a cartoonist. And like just having like a discussion about life, and it's always good. It's always really good. And then that's not all the comic is. There's also like strips where Calvin like imagines himself as like a space, ranger, like flying around.
We've all been there.
And whatever. If you ever get the time to just sit down and read Calvin and Hobbes, I would really recommend it. Just like
one of them's a tiger, right?
Yeah, it only ran for
TSD's pitch didn't communicate the fact that one of them's a tiger.
Yeah, Hobbes is the tiger.
It's kind of like Winnie the Pooh, but like the advanced version.
Something interesting about Hobbes is that he's the way he's drawn and the way he's playing is that he's just like he lives with Calvin. He's just this anthropomorphic tiger. But like whenever there's someone else in the panel who isn't Calvin, like his mom or like one of his classmates or whatever, or his teacher, Hobbs is a stuffed tiger.
Okay.
And so, but so the assumption there is like, oh, Hobbs is Calvin's imaginary friend. But at the same time, Hobbs affects the world and like does stuff in ways that like it would not really be physically feasible for an imaginary friend to be like that. And because like,
so what you're saying is, Family Guy ripped off Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But the way that Bill Watterson explained it once was that that like Hobbes is a metaphor for people seeing things differently. Like it's literally just that Calvin sees Hobbes one way and the rest of the world sees him another. There isn't like a canonical answer. There isn't like a canonical answer of whether or not Hobbes is just his imaginary friend or is literally a magical doll that springs to life.
Yeah, well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Any more questions in the pile?
Yeah. So we've got one.
Any more questions in these the small pile of papyrus that have been pushed through the gaps in the bricks of our tomb?
Let me just like sift through my scrolls.
I'll make some sound effects.
Something from Meatball, Discord user Meatball. If there was, this is a very serious question that I really want you to be able to answer with the utmost of your ability. If there was a knock at your door, would you be more surprised to see on the doorstep a fairy or a walrus?
I guess a walrus, because like, you know, if a fairy
that's my
knocks at
answer
your door,
too.
like, yeah, because like, okay, like if you come up and tell me like, hey, you think you've been living in this kind of normal world the whole time, but like actually like fairies are real or some shit. Like I've seen that movie a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get with the program pretty quickly. But like, if you're saying like not only are like walruses like intelligent, but like they can climb stairs and like, you know, they can knock on doors and stuff. Like I think that's like another layer. Like okay, fairies are real, sure, but like walruses not only, you know, not only can knock on doors now and can be out of the water, they're kind of smart guys. I think that'd throw me for a little bit more of a loop. I'd take a bit longer to kind of figure out the kind of status quo of whatever wacky world we were living in.
Yeah, because like and like to be clear, like the discussion doesn't even specify whether or not the thing knocked at your door. You just heard a knock at your door.
Oh,
so,
that's true. That's true.
So my answer, the way I think about it is that like if you'd be more surprised to see a walrus, because if you see a fairy, like you see like okay, like the it's just one logical thing. Oh, fairies are real, I guess. Like that's
fairies are real. Yeah, but like if there's a knock at your door and then there's just a walrus, like it's like okay, someone's just brought a walrus to my door and run off. I don't understand that. Yeah,
and I don't know about you, but I'm in a pretty landlocked area, so
I mean, I guess like far boundaries of my imagination, a walrus could have swum up the River Thames. Like I guess I'm a couple of miles from the Thames. Like I guess if you're a really determined walrus, you know, maybe a scientist's done like a brain swap with a walrus and they're like, I got to get to this address, right?
Yeah.
You know, maybe you could waddle that distance. I don't really know.
And like maybe someone, you know, maybe the walrus is just a walrus and like someone like did this as some kind of prank or whatever. But in that scenario, they'd first have to be able to get access
There's
to a walrus.
There's still more questions than answers. Yeah, exactly.
And then they'd have to be able to transport that walrus. And then they'd have to be able to get the walrus on your doorstep, bring the door, and then leave without
You're potentially dealing with like a large amount of people who are well connected in the kind of like logistics kind of industry, and like you know, I don't think you want to be in that situation. I don't think you want to be up against a bunch of you call them teamsters over there.
Yeah, there's like a mystery there. There's like a series of questions, whereas with the fairy, it's just like, oh, okay.
That's a good page one. You know, you've got to have a strong page one. Like knock, knock, knock. I go to my door. There's a walrus there. You know, I think that's a good page one.
Yeah. And I guess the fairies being real could also be a good page one, but you have to like have a implied like, okay, well we're gonna go.
There needs to be something more. Yeah, exactly. Like. Fairy at your door isn't enough, you know. There's not the kind of question gnawing at your mind there, but like just kind of like a regular walrus, just kind of like there. Maybe he's even dead. TSD, you know.
It's true.
There's so much implied there.
There's so many questions.
God, now I'm thinking about walruses.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got that important discussion out of the way. I feel like it's
weighty
important
stuff.
Like we talk about like the most pressing issues I feel like we have to be on the edge of culture. So
Yeah.
All right.
We're kind of the vanguard, yeah. Any other matters we need to kind of put to bed? You know, kind of
Yeah.
Our kind of cultural exploration needs to encompass.
I have one more.
All right.
This one is more related to like YouTube stuff, and it's from Not Quite Cool. How are you able to divorce your sense of success from the sometimes arbitrary YouTube how able are you to divorce your sense of success from the sometimes arbitrary YouTube viewing numbers? Have you found that any techniques that work for you that allow you to create work without the need for outside validation?
This is a very good question. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
I think I could go if you want. If you
Yeah.
If you
Yeah, no, take it. I'm curious as to what you have to say on this.
So the answer to that question is I don't really. I mean, I do, but
Yeah.
I feel like I do. There's always that part of me that's just like I'm kind of wired to read the objective metrics or whatever of how many people have seen this and how many have clicked on it.
Because
Whatever.
YouTube really puts them in your face.
Yeah,
right?
they really
Like-
make it so that you can see it.
Anytime you open the interface for you to do anything at all with your channel, like YouTube makes sure you are seeing how well your recent video did, you know, how your views have been for this month, you know, and they put these little arrows. They put the nice green arrow,
God,
which you
the
never
arrows.
see, and the horrible gray arrows, which you always see, which make you feel bad and, you know, make you think,
had
oh,
nightmares
goddamn,
about those
maybe I
arrows.
should go and crack some more videos up right now, you know, grind.
It's kind of
Also,
a genius
what I will
system.
say here is, it is, you know, for them, yeah, it's great, but like
Because no matter how much success you objectively have, as long as you've got a video recently that has done better, you'll always have some, you know, level of
yeah, you'll see one green arrow and a sea of grey arrows, and like even if you see the green arrows, you're like, hey, great, things are going well. Got to double down on that shit. You know, it's just a little thing they've got that kind of, you know, that's very easily worms its way into your brain. And Not Quite Cool, who's asked this, I believe they have a YouTube channel themselves.
Yeah, I think it's like every Spider-Man ever. or
Every
something like
Spider-Man ever, yeah. So hey guys, if you wanna see a really cool YouTube channel kind of covering the history of Spider-Man in comics, why don't you check out Every Spider-Man Ever?
Yeah.
But like, I'd be interested to hear, you know, if this is just like a purely kind of curiosity-based question, or if Not Quite Cool is, you know, having trouble with those same issues, you know?
that. Yeah. I guess to actually answer the question though, of like how do you divorce yourself from that, instead of just being like, I guess I don't. It's the way that I like to do it is I like to think about how it's like I like to focus on what people who have seen the video say about it. You know, like people who have gone to the effort to click on the video and watch it and then comment on it and then talk to me about it. I like to focus on their what they're saying about
So
it.
stuff like you need to do less face jump cuts.
Yeah, like important stuff like that. But like if someone who I really respect the opinion of, like tells me out, like without me having to ask, tells me that that they liked the video I made, that to me means a lot more than like a video getting, you know, all green arrows, because you know that sticks with you. That means that you're doing good work, even if the algorithm, which is like infamously volatile, isn't really loving what you're doing. Then if people are loving what you're doing, then that's what's important.
I mean, for my answer, I guess, also I find it hard to separate it. I'd say like at any given point, the minimum those arrows are influencing how I'm feeling about, you know, my channel, my career is like 30-40%. And, you know, that can rise sometimes. But I think the best thing I have for combating that is anyone listening to this who's a creative, be that, you know, a writer, a musician, an actor, anything, will know that like when you're going through the process of making something, at some points you feel better about it and at some points you feel worse about it. So like what I try to do is if I put a video out there and say it's flopped, say it's getting, you know, dog all views, you know, sitting there on the grey arrow, 9 out of 10, most of your recent videos are better than this. You should be working harder, making more stuff for the content mill to grind. If YouTube's saying that to me, I just try and think, what is the most high I felt on this video at any point while making it? Did I like finish writing it and think, yeah, I've really cooked here? You know, did I put in a really cool kind of transition in the editing and think, wow, this bit's really cool. It flows super nice, you know? And I try and remember and try and hold on as best I can to that moment. It doesn't always work, but it's something.
Yeah, just like thinking, because like ultimately, especially for me, because I don't make a living off of this. Ultimately, I'm just making this for my own satisfaction. And for my own fulfillment, like artistically. So just focusing on what I got out of the experience of making something really helps me feel better about it. And also, if you are,
who says the YouTube video is for the viewer, right?
And if
it's for the creator.
If you're going to be like, if there's any stat that I feel like you should be like paying more attention to than the others, it's not the views stat. Like I think the stat you should be paying more attention to is like, I want to say CTR and like watch time, because that just shows who saw it and who wanted to see it and who stuck around. Like if you've got like a video that has like 20 not 20 views, but like it's like way in your bottom percentage of how many views it gets, but like the CTR is really high, that just means that the algorithm hated it. And that people who saw it liked it and wanted to see it. Yeah. So, just remembering the human element, I think, is always a key factor.
That's always the bit that gets lost. You know, that's where you get commenters commenting hurtful things because they don't realize there's a person on the other end of it. That's why. I honestly, I think, especially like channels like mine, which we don't show our faces, it can be easy to forget the human element of it. But it's there, I guess the people listening to this know that. I guess the people listening to this are the people that are more likely to kind of be interested in that side of it. Can you hear that, by the way? There's like that was some sort of motorcycle parade going outside my window or something.
Yeah, there was some construction going on outside on my end before we started recording. I was worried it was going to keep going, but they've quieted down, so that's nice.
Yeah, they finished cooking. And, hey, have we finished cooking too? You
know what? I think that we have.
It feels like the oxygen is starting to run low in our little chamber, Some of our servers, that's what we call them, keeling over and dying. I'm going to finish wrapping my last arm in this kind of mummified tissue paper, and I'm gonna have a little nap in my stone coffin right in the corner. So I guess I'll see you in about 4,000 years, TSD.
I'll see you in about 4,000
incantation
years.
Is translated and read aloud.
Let me just say the final words of our incantation, just so that we can properly be laid to rest.
Exactly.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Pillar of Garbage podcast. We post new episodes every other Friday, so don't forget to follow us on whatever platform you're listening to us on. If you're on YouTube, toss us a like if you liked and comment if you had any thoughts. And if you're on any other podcast platform, leave us a review. And no matter what platform you're on, feel free to share the show with anyone you think might like it. All of those help support the show and ensure future episodes. You can find Pillar of Garbage on YouTube, Twitter, and Blue Sky, all under the name Pillar of Garbage. He also has a Discord server that should be linked in the description, where you can have your own questions on the hashtag PoGcast Q&A channel read on the pod. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and others, all under TSD Talks. We also both have Patreon pages that, among other cool perks, allow you to listen to episodes of the show early. Usually whenever we finish them, it can kind of range, or there's a bit of a range depending. And with that out of the way, I'm TSD Talks.
I am Pillar of Garbage, and with those words, Balakaru, the Mother of Locusts, has risen once again to lay waste to your feeble, feeble civilization. See you in the next world. You will be picking our wheat from the field of whatever the field is.
And this has been the Pillar of Garbage podcast.
Bye.